To enthuse about a specific topic, not realizing that most people listening will fail to understand it. That's a geek out. This is the show, the Geek Out Show.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Gil, your host. Black Hole Comics on Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. My co-host tonight, we got Christian, aka Ghost.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And we got some special guests tonight. We have Gene and John. You guys want to? There we go. From the Tribal Force comic book. Is that the right way to introduce it, or should I say from Machine Comics Tribal Force? Not really sure how to introduce that.
Probably say Tribal Force by Machine Comics.
Okay, Tribal Force by Machine Comics. There we go. I probably should have asked that before introducing you. Sorry. So how's it going, gentlemen?
Great.
It's going good. I got a little confused when you said gentlemen. I was like,
we got a couple watchers already. I'll get into like the comments. What's up, Matt? What's going on? He said that he just got out of watching Ant-Man. I too just watched it. I just got done with that. That was a good film. I liked it. So guys, the way that we like to kick this thing off with having new people on, we submit them to a gauntlet of questions called the Geeky Background Check. So we could just go ahead and round robin it, and when I call out the question, just like John could go, then Gene, and then Gene and John, and so on and so on. So the first question is, where did the geekdom, the nerddom, the geeky stuff, where did it start for you guys? Was it something that you had, since you were a child, or is it something that you came across recently? And where was the introduction from? Was it like from a family member or a friend? Who wants to start us off?
Go ahead, John.
oh my God. I've always been into it ever since I was a kid. Since I could, the first comic book I ever picked up was a Superman family comic and had a purple dragon on it. And it was because my dad, we were at some gas station and there was a table full of comic books, and and that's where it started, and that everything just bloomed from there. I got into sci-fi and everything, Space 1999, Star Trek, and buying the Mego dolls and or action figures, sorry. And
classics, yeah.
Yeah, and it kept going, and I was getting into trouble at school because all I would do is draw pictures of King Kong and Godzilla. I wasn't doing my work. And, my parents were really worried about me because unlike my brothers, I wasn't into sports or anything like that. I was into this weird element they weren't used to yet. Yeah. So, I've always been a concern, or was a concern for my parents.
That's cool. That's cool. You're one of us, as they say.
Yeah, one of us.
And Gene?
Yeah, my road's so I'm the youngest of three brothers, and they're both stud athletes. I am not. I'm thinking about, I'm like 3 times the size I was ever, all through school. So I tried to play sports, was not that good. So I generally went out for the individual track type sports. But my comic nerddom actually starts back with Howard the Duck. Honestly, my brother had was given a Howard the Duck and an Iron Man and a Silver Surfer comic book, and he shared it with me. I think we were about 7 or 8, and it became a Bible. I was just like so enthralled in it, and then from there, it actually went really over into comic strips, and I just, anything I can get my hands on with Bloom County, and Charles Schultz and Calvin and Hobbes and all that, and then going back and forth between that and comic books as I grew up. That was it, because it was a medium that I understood. It was slower paced than television and something that you can ingest, but also something that kind of questioned you a little bit, especially like a lot of political comics like Bloom County and Opus and Berkeley Breath and all them. And so yeah, it was really cool understanding that there was a medium as cool as TV that I could read. And that's how it kind of all started. But yeah, my journey really started with Silver Surfer and Howard the Duck.
I love it. I love Silver Surfer from back in the day. I mean, some of the modern stuff is good too, but his roots are awesome.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Yeah, and Jack Kirby. I didn't know who Jack Kirby was. You don't know these guys until you actually put a name with it after a while. But I got to meet Jack at my very first convention I went to. It was actually one of his last that he went to. And just meeting and then going back through all the Eternal stuff and all the the artwork that he did, and the world. I think I was more floored by the worlds he created. Worlds that were relatable, that were I think to this day I think we're still catching up to his the worlds and the theories and the the whole cultures that he not only imagined but then also drew upon. And this is one of the reasons why I created Machine Comics, because I was so, amazed by what ancient cultures and everything can bring to storytelling and lesson learning and, wisdoms that can be passed along through simple medium, which I'm still, beyond enchanted with.
So I'm a little biased here. I'm such a sucker for like Greek mythology, Norse mythology, just like all the different pantheons, mythologies, just all that stuff about, how everything was. Such a sucker for that. So, I mean, I know we'll get into it, but there is some of that aspect from Tribal Force, what I could see, at least from first glance, just looking at some of the art.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys covered the comics, action figures. John here kind of got into the Migos. Did you continue to collect the Migos? And like, what was your first one and or favorite one that you remember? Do you still collect them?
Yeah. I have a whole room full of them over there.
Sean, I would love to see a picture of that, man.
Oh my God, it's not fun, dude. It's where my bedroom should be, and I don't have a bed in there because I own 14 Eagles from Space 1999, the 2.5-foot Eagles from Mattel. I own 14 of them. Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's insane.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, no, it's pretty ridiculous. And I've got stuff like, Johnny West, the Marx Johnny West figures, $6 Million Man, G.I. Joe, the Adventure Team. I've got a whole shelf dedicated to the Hulk, and I've got over 3,000 DVDs in my collection.
Nice.
Yeah, and it goes from the 1930s to current. So yeah, I'm an avid collector. I'm an avid, I go to the comic shop every Wednesday. I've got my comics are just stacked up almost to the ceiling in the plastic boxes. So yeah, it's pretty bad.
That's so awesome to hear.
Yeah.
What about you, Gene? A fan of collectibles, action figures, or statues, anything like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm more in the art book scene. Collecting guys' collection and career of work. So I have probably close to 900, I guess, different various art books from various people. My wife's going to kill me, but if this thing was gone, you'd see I'm kind of sitting in a library of a bunch of them that are here, and then I have a studio at the studio headquarters. There's a bunch there as well. So yeah, I have a lot of art books from just odd, quirky people, Crumb and the Calvin and Hobbes origins and all that stuff. And I love them. I think it's a great way to see people's mindset and artists, creators' mindset as they've kind of developed their craft. Because a lot of those you get like some early on sketches and some little doodles and stuff, and that's where you kind of really see the mind working. And I've always been fascinated by that, how how creation works with everybody. So that's kind of where I am. I mean, I also have I don't know, probably 500 or 600 pop dolls, and
Wow.
yeah, and don't tell my wife that. But yeah, no, there's that, and there's comics I still collect regularly. I'm a huge Spawn fan. I think what Todd's done is just amazing, and it's probably my favorite series ever. I think just the various dimensions and everything that he went with it,
Yes,
alongside all of Kirby's stuff. And I think honestly, one of the things that what I love finding is other people's stuff. So I know John is like probably the biggest Conan fan I've ever met.
Oh man, him and Jade got to hang out.
Rare Conan and it's available or something like that. I'll just grab it, and he knows, when he comes to see me at the con, I'll probably have 1 or 2 Conan things for him. Because it's like, oh yeah, I love other people's passion for it too. I mean, that's a great connection point for, when people say, hey, what do you like? It's like, well, I actually collect samurai, comic books about samurais. Doesn't matter which publisher or anything. So I have a bunch of series of random, creators from, ages, from Cub and to, the samurai one by Richard Giordano and all those guys. And, that's just my thing, so tons of different little quirks here and there. But I do like my, my specific genres of samurais and a lot of the Spawn stuff too. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I gotta show this off real quick.
All right.
Oh, hold on. Let me give you the main screen.
6.5.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. So this isn't an original. It's what they call a golden record. Spider-Man, it was released in '65, a couple of years after the original. But these are they're getting hard to find. So I found it at a decent price. But this is probably the closest I'll get to owning the original.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's truly awesome. Is that like one of your standout pieces from your collection right there?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, definitely. I used reservation dog money on that. And I got a little crazy, and I was like, "What the hell? You only live once."
Hey, that's what I was gonna say. You definitely need to, spoil yourself every once in a while. That's for sure.
Yeah, every now and then. I don't have a girlfriend, so I didn't have to explain myself to anyone.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to talk to my wife and be like, "Hey, I'm tired of having to explain myself."
Yeah, that's right, baby.
Next time you guys see me, I'm gonna have a black eye. The next thing would be animation. So it doesn't only pertain to traditional Japanese anime, but I'm talking about all styles of animation, whether it be American, Japanese, cartoons. John, are you into that, or were you into it at one point?
Yeah, no, Saturday morning cartoons, watching Tarzan and Scooby-Doo and all that stuff, and I was raised on that. And then when I discovered Ninja Scroll, I lost my mind. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And that got me into the Japanimation and Battle of the Planets.
Yes.
And always wondering why we couldn't have that kind of quality in American animation.
Exactly.
I was like, I liked American animation, but Japanese animation was just above and beyond. And I was like, man, we need to do that stuff here with our stuff.
For sure. Just they were way ahead of the curve, for decades. I feel like we're barely now competing with them. What about you, G?
Yeah, same. Saturday morning Looney Tunes. So Chuck Jones, I'm in Southern California, and he was down 4 miles from my house, his studio and everything, and all the collectible studios and everything. So, all the Bugs Bunny stuff, all the, all of that, that was church. You couldn't miss that,
Absolutely.
And then when Voltron came out, it blew my mind, and then the different, variations of Voltron. I'm like, what? There's lions, and now there's cars, and now there's, that was just amazing. So, and I think once we got to, was it 95 where Toy Story came out, I thought that was a big, good jump. And at the same time, I don't think we're anywhere near what we could be doing with it. There's so much good stuff. I think, I'll hold my tongue on criticism for some of the stuff that's going on, but I think animation itself, I wanted to be, that was my original goal, for a lot of my young life. I wanted to make cartoons. I have several shows that I've written and everything from that time too, but animation I think is a awesome. It's funny too because I was just at the Comic-Con museum and they have a whole entire animation floor there.
I love that spot.
Yeah. So it coming out of our studio when I first met John back in '96, we had about 5 or 6 guys, and one of those guys is a producer at The Simpsons now, and he's directed I think over 50 episodes or something.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so it's the cool thing about living in Southern California is you get to kind of know these guys that are working in that industry, and and in my case I have 2 or 3 of them that have actually worked for me. So it's been cool. It's been cool to see the way they've taken it. I'm a big Family Guy fan, and as well as I thought Beavis and Butthead was one of the most original things ever. So it's great.
Absolutely. Oh man. Real quick, just want to call out one of the comments. Matt, major reaction. He said, Migos are soft enough to where you can make a bed out of them. So you're all good. You're good there, John.
You're sick, Matt, but I love you. I like where you're going with
that. Next thing would be gaming. So this doesn't only pertain to video games. It also includes tabletop and all that other stuff. So any and everything for gaming. John?
Yeah, I started out with Dungeons and Dragons when I was about 11, and I was criticizing it. I just thought it was the dumbest thing ever. And this one kid was smart enough to say, "Well, why are you making fun of it if you don't even know what it is?" So he convinced me to sit down and play, and I was hooked, man. I was hooked, and like I had a binder with my character in it, and then we got in trouble in middle school because they took our dice away. So we made holes in pencils on the edges of pencils, and we would roll the pencils as dice. And then the teachers figured out what we were doing. And they were just like, "What is your problem?" But yeah, that was such a huge effect on me, was the gaming. And then of course, I grew up in the age of when video games just started coming out, Pac-Man and Defender and Tetris, and lost my mind when Dragon's Lair came out. Lost my mind. Like I ditched school to play that game. Me and a buddy of mine named Joe, we spent, I don't even know how much money. We probably could have bought the damn game for as much money as we spent. And I'm 56 years old, and I know about all the new games coming out. My grandson is shocked that I know about all these new cool games, and all he has to do is like, "Tata, I want this game," and I'll go get it.
My dog always comes and says hello whenever I'm recording. I don't know why. It's like he knows when he sees me over here. He comes over here and he runs up and he's like, "I got to come say hi." And he usually ends up stealing the show. So, hi,
like, what's more important than me? Yeah,
exactly.
I've got 4 of them back here if you want one.
Hey, send them over. This is a Chihuahua pug mix. So,
oh wow,
little chunky boy. What about you, Gene?
Same, actually. Dungeons and Dragons was huge, and that, I think just that sparking that animation. I was more interested in drawing the characters than I was playing, and I still have probably maybe about 100 of the metal miniatures, painted for Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, my mom's a hoarder, so she has everything I've ever done ever. So they'll come up someday. You know, they're in the attic somewhere. But and then I think the video games with the Tecmo Bowl and man, what was the other one? Oh, Dragon's Lair. But things like Joust and things, those are just games, man. Those are just awesome games. And then as we went into like the Madden, playing a lot of Madden throughout college and whatnot. It's funny too, because I kind of drifted away from games, but I couldn't really get back, couldn't get too far because a lot of my, as a designer and artist and illustrator, I was constantly designing boxes and designing, characters, sometimes environments and stuff like that before there were studios or, entire campuses now that actually produce games. So we were, my studio would get called and said, hey, we need a box cover for, Quest, or was it the one called Diablo? We did the first box for Diablo.
Right.
And then
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then, and here's something you guys are going to laugh at. 2 months ago, I recorded voiceover for a new game that's going to come out, starring Darnie Glover, Kim Basinger, Danny Trejo. It's called Crime Boss. It's centered in Miami. I do all the voices of Danny Trejo's gang members.
Oh shit!
I play about 9 Mexicans and Puerto Ricans in that. So there's like when somebody is mad, I was like, oh, and doing all those lines and everything. So I have like the most coverage in the entire game, because most of the time you're, going around fighting the Hispanic or, Latino gang members that is Danny Trejo's gang. And eventually they all become heroes and everything. But yeah, so I just did like a 5-hour voiceover session, 2 months ago for the entire game. And the game's just be out March 24th, I think. So
a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Right on.
So I'm supposed to be getting clips like any day now of me yelling at people.
As your characters?
Yeah. I played a couple Asian guys and a couple, butlers as well.
Talk about range.
Yeah, they go, can you do it? Can you do an Asian voice? I'm like, the only one I got is what's his name? Hong from Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only voice I had for them. They're just like, perfect, do that.
He's a one-stop shop. Rolando said, have you ever seen the animated movie Turok, Son of Stone? I know the original comics are problematic, but I like the film.
I have not. I've heard of it, and people keep telling me to watch it, but I will. It's on my list.
And then Matt over here is saying that you're going to have to come play D&D with us, because we do run a D&D campaign. However, it's been a little while since we played. And Matt, major reaction, he's actually our DM. He's our dungeon master.
Oh.
So, yeah. We love him, but we also hate him. So, as most DMs, come on, it's a love-hate thing. He does an amazing job, and he does voices and all that stuff. He really gets us into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, Matt's also saying, Gene, that's awesome with the voices. Michael Madsen is in the game, right? That's what he's asking about the Crime Bosses one.
Yes, I think he is. I believe he's in that as well.
That's awesome. Then we'll go ahead and close out on TVs and movies. I mean, you guys kind of answered it, but maybe favorite TV series of all time, and if you guys got a favorite movie or whatnot.
TV's tough.
Yeah, TV's tough because, God.
Like, you can't say the one you're not starring in right now.
Just like this.
Yeah.
Reservation Dogs,
well,
season 1, 2, and 3.
I mean, when I was a kid, it was Star Trek. Star Trek was the one that blew my mind. And then, Planet of the Apes, the TV series and the movies, obviously. were big in my life. But Star Trek was the beginning of sci-fi for me, I think.
Live long and prosper. Okay.
Yeah, Battlestar Galactica. That was
Oh,
my
yeah.
I it was great. We had all the toys, but it was just I liked it for the same reason I also love Star Trek and fell in love with Star Wars and everything. Is that another world, another galaxy, another set of rules going on, and they tried to keep out the the same sort of problems that kind of kept creeping into the Star Trek series. It was more like this otherworldly type thing. So I always thought that was cool, and they always did it on a limited budget too. So I thought they did a good job with just kind of keeping me attuned to that. Movies is challenging. There's always I was playing this dinner game the other day. I said, okay, make your life in 3 movies, and it's like, well, two of them are very much my favorite. But I think honestly, the Matrix series. So that's what 3, almost 4 now. It would be probably my favorite movie. But if it was a single film, I honestly, and you're gonna laugh at me, it would be The Last Samurai, which I thought was just I thought it was brilliant and did a good job for what it was, and they told a decent story, and I thought all the acting and especially the stunts and everything were great because there wasn't a lot there's not a lot you can do with special effects you can do with what they had, so a lot of it was just either sped up motion or just really good stuntmen. So
I'm starting to think you like samurais or something.
yeah. By the way, I got a new title coming out.
Right. Matt said, I guess I don't do as many voices as Gene, apparently. And then just one quick question from the chat. What roles/projects are you most proud of? This is for both you guys.
Roles like in movies and TV?
I'm guessing it says what roles/projects.
Well, I mean, obviously Reservation Dogs, because it's so ground setting, that it was the first time I got to play a positive role model, a good dad, and it was something that was very similar to my life because I was a single father. I raised a daughter on my own. And I put my whole life into it. I walked away from Hollywood in the early 90s to come back to Tucson to raise my daughter. I got custody of her when she was 5. And I couldn't raise her in LA. All our family was here. And, being a single dad with a girl, which I knew nothing about. So, yeah, Reservation Dogs is probably one of my proudest moments. Just because of what it's done and the effect that it's had on Native fathers. And, I've had Native fathers contact me and, people who have lost their dads, they're now gone, but their dads were great fathers. And they said, you remind me of that, my dad. And it was pretty profound, to hear that. So, yeah, that Reservation Dogs.
That's awesome. Gene, what about you? A role or project that you're a part of?
It's funny. If you would have asked me this about a year and a half ago, I would still say, the Tribal Force book that we worked on back in '96 is one of my favorites. Soon after that, I actually got, I was Eminem's webmaster for a bit, and I produced the Slim Shady World animated series that was on the web when Flash first came out. And we won Entertainment Weekly Site of the Year for 2020, which at that time you could actually count how many websites there were, and how many websites were coming up. So it was a good, pretty cool thing to be a part of. And yeah, the only other project I would say would probably be teaching. I taught for 10 years at the University of Redlands. And,
that's cool.
Yeah, and I love teaching. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the process and seeing people come alive, and all of a sudden that spark come up in their eyes. So I hope to go back someday and teach, teach fine art and teach as well, graphic design as well as storytelling and creativity.
Yeah, that's excellent, man.
Matt said Reservation Dogs is a great series. I would be super proud to be a part of that. Yeah, absolutely.
We all love that show here.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, pretty much the main reason why everyone came here tonight, besides from just, seeing, you guys and hearing from you guys, there's a little something you guys got cooking up called Tribal Force. It's a comic, it's a Kickstarter. I'm going to go ahead and show off the site. So here goes the Kickstarter site right here. And if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and play the hold on, let's see. Is this going to respond or is it not going to respond? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer for everybody. I'm going to turn it down. Just don't want to be too loud and blow out anyone's eardrums.
My name is John Proudstar. I am the writer and creator of Tribal Force, and Tribal Force is the first all-native superhero comic book in the history of the United States. Tribal Force was inducted into the Smithsonian Institute for being the first all-native superhero comic book. The Kickstarter that we're doing right now, the funds that we're trying to raise is predominantly for production. It's to pay the artists that are working on the book. The goal is to create native superheroes for kids, to expose the world to our culture.
In 1996, I had the opportunity to produce and work creatively on the original Tribal Force. Back then, we were just a bunch of kids that were just excited to produce something. And we had this awesome creation called Tribal Force, based on Native American traditions and heroes. And it was so original and so gripping. We just need your support. We're ready to give you the heroes and the stories and especially the art. Chris Williams is an amazing artist. I cannot believe I get to work on his incredibly unique style, and what he's brought to Tribal Force this time around is just amazing. The art is going to be incredible, the story is incredible, and we're in for a ride.
Alrighty, folks. If you guys haven't watched it, there you go. Yeah, I was going to say you guys are just about at 60%. So there's 24 days left for the Kickstarter. You guys are at 38.56 out of 6,500, which I feel like that's. I've seen other Kickstarters ask for more. I'm just like, wow, that's not too bad at all. That's not terrible. And I'm glad that you guys are at 60%. I'm hoping with this interview and what everybody heard from you guys and is going to see, we could get you fully funded, hopefully within the next couple days or so. So me and Christian and the rest of the team will definitely put a lot more word out and doing promotional. So I'm just going to go over some of the stuff with you guys. Is that all right?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, so Tribal Force, you get the main characters here. Can you talk a little bit about the characters, starting from the top?
Yeah, from the top, the four-armed guy is Little Bighorn. He's Hunk Papa Sioux, and he was born with fetal alcohol effects, so he can't speak, but he's given these powers. And a lot of my characters reflect, I worked with survivors of child molestation and violent youth offenders for 30-some years of my life. So a lot of these characters emulate some of the kids that I knew. And, there was this kid who was just super, super violent, and who I based Little Bighorn off of. And the next one would be Nita. She's the little girl who the whole story revolves around. She's a character from my tribe, Yaqui, and she's also Navajo. And she's a survivor of child molestation. It had always been my goal to create a character for young girls who had gone through this. 1 year on the Pascua Yaqui reservation and the Tana Autumn reservation out here, we had 7 suicides. And it all went back to these were kids who had experienced molestation in their lifetime. And I wanted to do something to start battling this, to start educating kids and hopefully create a hero for them that would give them options other than suicide. So hopefully Nita will be that character for these young people. The next one is the guy in the Jaguar suit. His name is Jaguar Knight. He's actually a Jaguar Knight from 500 years ago. I don't want to give away too much about him because he's kind of our mystery Wolverine type character.
Ooh.
But he's awesome. I love him, and he only appears at night, just like the Jaguar Knights. The original ones would only fight at night, so he only shows up, as soon as the sun comes down. And the next one is Thunder Eagle, my boy. He's a Native American god. He's a warrior spirit, and the symbol on his chest is from the Paiute medicine man Waboka. It's from the ghost dance. And then right under him is Adi, which is his brother, and he's from the Kwakiutl tribe and has no memory of being a god. They had to go find him. He was stealing cars in Anchorage, Alaska, and basically Thunder Eagle had to kind of tell him who he was and what he is, which he doesn't have a lot of faith in it. He's a very, he lived on the streets for a real long time and has no recollection of being a god, a demigod, or anything like that. So it's this unique family that's slowly coming together, that Thunder Eagle's trying to train these individuals on how to utilize their powers.
Oh man, I just got to say real quick, before anybody else says anything, but with Nita, man, that's extremely touching. You gave me freaking chills. Just, no, I'm not trying to BS you, not trying to blow smoke, anything like that. Just, that's beautiful. I just got to say that's honestly beautiful, and it moves me. Seriously.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, just the whole, just from the beginning, it's so beautiful and it's moving, man. I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a huge part of my life working with survivors, and at one point, I did it for 30 some years, and I had to leave because I was losing my mind, and there was this part of me that didn't want to. So now that I'm doing what I want to do, I still want to reach out to that community. I want to be I want to fight this. I think we can beat it in our lifetime. I think it's all about talking, beginning the conversations and having people come out and giving kids and children and even adults who have never been able to say, hey, this happened to me. I think it's powerful to create those avenues for them. And until we start talking about it, a lot of people are going to keep it secret, so hopefully this helps somebody, hopefully.
I'm thinking it will. I'm definitely thinking it will. But man, I love the artwork. I love the character designs. Let me see. I don't know. Is anyone asking anything? We'll get into that stuff in a minute. I just want us to focus on the Kickstarter, guys. This is amazing. Okay, here we go. Matt, this is an amazing concept. Props to you, John, for helping those kids. I just wanted to make sure nobody else asked it. I don't know if you guys are thinking about action figures, but man, I'm just saying, if you guys ever did make some action figures, sign me up, take all my money, and I'm all about them. I'm just saying.
That's another thing that we need also is more native representation in the action figure line as well.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. No, our people, our stories, our heroes were alive thousands of years before everyone else. Our gods came down and lived amongst us, and those stories are rich in all our cultures. There's 753 independent native tribes in the United States of America. This doesn't even include Canada, and every tribe has a story about their gods, and it's important that we know those stories, and it's important that our children start realizing that before Hercules, before all these other heroes that came out, those stories were taken from our people, the things that happened out here as the gods walked amongst us. A lot of those stories were pilfered from us and utilized in other people's stories. So once our children start to realize how important our stories are to the fabric of everything, I think that's going to build a lot of pride, within our own kids.
Just to say a little piece from my end, I'm trying to rediscover my roots. I don't really know a whole lot I actually found out that my parents, my grandparents, all them, they kind of lost their traditions and don't really know our backstory and stuff like that. So I'm slowly, along with my wife, we're trying to figure out those roots and, give me a little sense of who and what I am a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's like easy to lose it over the generations.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like, like I said, my grandparents, my parents, they didn't pass it along. I want to be able to pass that along to my children. So that's why I'm trying to put forth the effort now to rediscovering it.
Yeah. Oh, your grandparents came from that generation where they had to hide it. It was a matter of survival.
100%. That's what it was. Yep.
Yeah. In Tucson, it was, and in the West, if they saw more than 3 Native Americans congregating, soldiers were ordered to shoot first and ask questions later. And natives weren't even allowed in places. There was signs up that said no dogs or Indians allowed. So we didn't even have citizenship. We weren't even treated on a human level. I see old photos where it says, oh, there's a water fountain for Black people. There were no water fountains for Indians. There were no places to sit in the theater for Native Americans. We were not allowed. We stayed away from town because it was too dangerous for us. So yeah, we all have those stories. Anybody that has a Latino background, it's that story where they had to shed their language, whether you were Mexican or Indian, you had to hide that stuff. And if you were born fair skinned, you were lucky because you could walk amongst everyone else and not, they had to kind of dig into your history to figure out like, oh, they're part Mexican or Indian or what have you. Yeah. Sorry, got me on my soapbox.
No. Hey, John, it's all good. I mean, honestly, like me and Christian talk about this stuff because, me and Christian are kind of like on the same thing of trying to, just rediscover our roots and stuff like that, and talking about the native representation and all that stuff because it's definitely lacking. It truly, honestly is. And just to piggyback on what you said earlier, it starts with the talking about it. A lot of people don't want to, especially like the older people, like my grandparents. They don't want to talk about that type of stuff just because it wasn't normalized. It's you're weak, if you show emotion or talk about that stuff, and it's like no, you could get the strength from it. You could definitely find power in that because it's not holding you back. It's not anything to be ashamed of. You could definitely find power in it. That's just how I feel.
Yeah. Well, and especially with the Latino community, a lot of them are understanding that, Latino and Indigenos, it's the same thing. There is no separation with Mexican and Indian. We are one and the same. It was the United States who put that border down, and all of a sudden our brothers, our sisters, our cousins were foreigners, like we were Americans and they're foreigners now. Yep. That's not true. Those are our brothers and sisters. And if you have Latino blood in you, you have Indian blood. You have you're indigeno. You're indigenous to this country.
Yes. Absolutely. I clap it up for you. Real quick, Rolando Beneda, he said, what are your inspirations and influences behind Tribal Force? Either one of you guys want to take that on?
Gene, go ahead, because I talk too much.
Well, I think I identify with what you're talking about, Gil. In the, I've been on a quest, I guess, for the past 5 or 6 years now of reconnecting and finding my own roots. I've been a fine artist for 20 years. I have my own gallery. I've shown in galleries across the country. And the more and more I've dug into myself to produce the work I produce, the more I kept finding this empty spot. Where does this root live? Where does this root come from? Where does, and there was always a wall. And I was, I'd go to my parents or grandparents, and there would be just so much that was given out. But then going to my extended family, all of a sudden, discovering that my great grandparents came here in 1909. They walked 2,200 miles from Durango, Mexico to get here and then help establish one of the, prominent immigrant communities here in, Orange County, which is the same a block from where my current studio is, and then also doing my own DNA test, finding out that I'm 64% Native North American, or Native to the Americas. Primarily I'm Patagonian. Who knew? But the next one down would be what I am most is Aztec, and then I get into Aleutian and northern woodlands and Sonoran Desert. All these are part of the things that make me up. So what inspires me, honestly, I think it's just part of this journey that I love, that John has kind of, I don't want to say shortcutted, but has brought together a lot of the things that I was looking for, not only in comics, pop culture, and heroes, but then also ancient wisdoms. Once you guys start reading the book and start seeing where choices and decisions and their backgrounds and what drives this group, what drives this team to do what they're doing, you start really feeling, this is grounding. This is, who I am, and this is part of history that was kept hidden for so long, and it just feels more home to me than anything. So as far as inspiration, it's like I get to color a lot of it, and probably be splitting coloring chores as we move forward, as we get more busy. But in coloring it, I've actually gotten to reconnect with a lot of the, the Lakota and Nakota color palettes and the Aztec color palettes, and figuring out what patterns that are traditional, which are sacred, what shouldn't I use, what should I use, out of pure respect and holding things at a level that makes it respectable and honorable to our culture, to the various cultures involved, to the various tribes, and to the various, ancestors. So it's been, for me, it's, I feel like we're just starting the journey, because the more story that I get put in front of me, it's like, I got to figure out, what that is. I got to figure out, how to what color that is, or what, what time of day, or what the clouds would look like there, So it's been really, really cool. That's inspiration enough, because as I'm unfurling this, I'm also discovering my own culture.
That's got to be awesome, and honestly, like pretty gratifying, I'd say. Like that you're discovering all this, and pretty awesome. I respect and love that you're drawing from real world, the colors, and looking up the palettes, and that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, this is kind of like what John ran down for us, the introduction. The America's first all-native superhero comic has returned. So I was not, until I read this and you guys were talking about it, I did not know that there was a comic back in '96, which I'm going to have to go track down now on eBay or something like that. I'll find a way to get it. But that was the main thing. Like when Christian sent it to me, I was just like, I was like, I need, like, yes, I want to back this. Let's spread the word, and let me reach out to these guys, because I would love to talk to them. So.
Yeah, back in '96. So coming out of college, I graduated in '93. Went to work for a studio for like all of 4 months, and then said, you know what, I want to get in comic books. I know Photoshop is going to be the thing, and I got into doing that. And then I taught a couple other people to do it. Put a studio together and had about 5 or 6 guys just, doing the whole night shift thing, because you're 20 at the time, 21 at the time, and you can stay up and, for 7 days straight and just keep going. And that's what we did. And so we were out looking for projects, and we had a couple groups hire us to kind of be their in-house production department. And Mystic Comics was one of them. And they asked me to kind of be the creative overseer of that. And I said, sure, why not? And we had a couple books come through us that were really great. One called Arachnus by the Ortiz brothers. And then Tribal Force, we met John at San Diego. And it was just, it blew my mind, because, at that time I wasn't really looking for my roots. I wasn't really, thing. But when it came around, like, oh, this is something. This, you know, and I think honestly, I would probably look at that point when that came by, and like, that's where, that's the kind of voice, or that's the kind of story I want to be a part of, you know, because I can relate. And so, you know, we go through the whole production and everything, and then all of a sudden, you know, as soon as it came out, you know, it's 25 years ago, but I want to say probably a couple months after it came out, you know, everything was gone. You know, the companies were gone and everything, and so we had to scramble and disassemble my own studio, and we went to work into the fashion district and everything because we had to make a living. You know, we were on the back end bubble of what was the, you know, the image, invention, and the late 90s just turned out to be terrible for comics.
Yeah,
you know,
kind of oversaturation, kind of.
Right. Yeah, and so it was unfortunate. And from then, I'll let John pick up the story because I was bummed. You know, he was gone. My own studio was gone, and now everyone was out in the wind. And go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, it was a nightmare because I had met with other publishers, and you know, it was just a string of people promising me this and that and blowing smoke. And you know, I had learned one good thing, which was from our original attorney, was, you know, to always make sure that I walk away with the rights. So no matter who I dealt with, that was the one thing I would always demand is, well, if this relationship ever fails, I walk away with my rights. You don't own anything. So luckily I was able to hold on to that over the years. But it was just a menagerie of horrible, horrible individuals. And a lot of them, I think, meant well, but they didn't know what they were doing. And then when it came time for me to write the stories, and I would write about stuff, and if I mentioned child molestation survivors or fetal alcohol syndrome, they would freak out. They would be like, they didn't understand what our people had gone through. And it's too hard to talk about for them because it points a finger at them, at their people, at their country. So they would always say, "Can you write that story later, or we'll deal with that later?" And they didn't want Nita to be a survivor of child molestation, or they didn't want me to talk about these things. And I would walk away. And after a while, it got so ridiculous. My rep, you know, I would tell them to stop offering me money because it's pissing me off. They're not going to buy me out of this. Yeah. And he would tell them that was the first thing. He goes, whatever you do not offer them a lot of money to not write those stories. And that was the first thing they do. And I would just walk. And I was like, I don't care about money. I would love to make money, but not at the cost of not being able to write about these subjects, survivors, and, you know, fetal alcohol syndrome. Because without that, it doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have a purpose. It's just, you know, Native American X-Men. Anyone can do that. Yeah. And I don't want Tribal Force to be that. I want definitely have an element of that, but the heart of it has to deal with these issues.
Yeah, I respect that. I honestly do respect that, and that's awesome that you're not willing to sacrifice, you know, what you want, your vision, for that. And I appreciate that you're not going to censor yourself in the story that you want to tell.
I lost a lot of girlfriends because they weren't very happy when I turned down money, lots of money. Like, baby, just get in my 05 Camry and be quiet.
See, hey, there you go. Gotta be practical, man. Gotta be practical.
Yep.
Talking about X-Men, I love this homage. This is cover A that's being offered. That's, you know, it's an homage to what is it? Future Past, right?
Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
That was like a seminal book for me. I was in middle school when that first came out. That was the first X-Men book I ever read. This kid recommended it to me, Gilbert, and because I was all Spider-Man, Hulk, you know, and he said, "Read this, just read it." And man, it blew my mind. It was like I've never done drugs, but I imagine if I did heroin, that's what it was like. My Sgt. Pepper's, you know, the first time I heard Sgt. Pepper's album, it just blew my mind because it dealt with an alternate universe and seeing the graves of superheroes that I had been following all my life, and this new weird X-Men was just so damn weird. And the characters were weird, and you know, it's like the first time you eat sushi, you know, it's like you're like, what the hell is this?
I gotta say, for the A cover, I really do love it. I'm digging this. I'm loving the homage. So 27 pages is what you guys are looking for, right, for the first issue? Oh, yeah. What was that? I'm sorry.
I said that's Chris Williams' art right there.
For the A?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here goes some interiors, kind of like some of the panels, so just showing off a little bit of it, and then we get our Nita front and center. Sneak peek page. And you get to see Thunder Eagle. And I say right off the bat, I love this artwork right here with the with the wolves.
Yeah.
I love how they look. I gotta say, I really do dig that. Yeah, just beautiful. Who did the internal art?
That's Chris Williams as well.
Oh, Chris Williams as well. Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Yeah.
B cover. I gotta say, I'm a sucker for chibi stuff too, like the small, cute, squishy stuff. It's really cool. I like it.
Yeah, Scott Sirag actually draws my personal comic, Downtown, which is the first comic that Machine published, and but his chibi art is really, you know, he's got a young level when it comes to that, and we were sitting there talking, and some of the first pages of Tribal Force had come over, and he had sketched a little Jaguar Knight, almost just like that, as we were talking. I'm like, dude, we've got to do a chibi cover. And then he comes back with this the next week. I'm like, oh my God, it's crazy. And so we were just all excited and everything. And then we started designing figures and everything. It's like, okay, wait, we got to get the book done first.
It's funny because these two, they look cute, but you know that they will kill you. They'll rip you to shreds. It's like, yeah, like these ones, they're cute. And then you think like, oh, it's not that bad. But with these, it's like, oh, you're screwed. You're definitely screwed. The C cover. This definitely reminds me of, image, like an image cover right here with this one. Like it kind of reminds me of like the Spawn, how like Spawn had a couple that were like some type of circular design, and then there was like stuff going on. So that's kind of like what I'm getting there is like the image thing. I don't know if that's what the inspiration was, but
it's actually Fantastic Four. I took that idea from World.
The thing. Okay, it would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted something that was reflective of that homage to such a great group like the FF, and just whenever I saw that FF cover, it was just so inspirational, and it's so I don't know, and I said, I've got to see Tribal Force like that,
That's awesome. And then the D cover, me and Gene were talking about this. This is my personal favorite. I'm a little biased. I'm a huge fan of Jesse Hernandez, Urban Azteca. If you know him, you know him, Urban Aztec. He's a Bay Area native. And man, such a beautiful cover.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he agreed to do it. Like I met him and he was super cool. And I was a little nervous broaching that, when you meet people and you're like, oh, we got to work together. We got to do something. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But when it comes down to brass tacks, yeah. And you got to ask like, hey, we want you to do this. And long story short, he did it, man. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And we also had, there was another artist. Can I mention his name, Gene?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be an honor to mention his name. That we almost got to.
I had contacted Jason Pearson and basically pitched it and said, "Would you do a cover? You're like my favorite artist, dude." And he was all for it. And he sent me some sketches, some ideas, and then I contacted him in November, I believe. And then I hadn't spoken to him since. And I was just I wanted to I didn't want to be a pain in his ass because I know he had a lot of commissions and stuff. And then one day, my brother was asking about him, and I'm like, you know what? I should contact him. And then 2 hours later, a friend of mine contacted me saying Jason Pearson had passed.
Oh man.
And yeah, and I was just devastated because he was cool to me. I know he was a little controversial in his opinions and everything, but he loved Tribal Force. He loved the idea of Tribal Force, and and it just broke my heart that what had happened to him because he's a comic guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, and Body Bags was just ridiculously good, just ridiculous, and all his stuff was just amazing.
Man, that's sad to hear, man. And right when you were reaching out, nonetheless, that's wow.
Yeah,
that's insane. Just real quick, we got a couple comments. Maybe save that one. Thank you for fighting to keep the rights to Tribal Force and for keeping this book alive. Oh, thank you. My wife just brought me some food. Thank you, babe. Appreciate it. Love you. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know if this will give anything away. Rolando is asking, what was the process for creating the villains in Tribal Force? I don't know if you guys will be giving anything away if you guys answer that. If it'll spoil anything, you guys don't have to answer it, but if you could give something.
No, I like writing stories of circumstance, not necessarily. There may not be clear-cut villains. The situation is the villain. And sometimes it pits good people against one another. And sometimes there are villains. And it's like history. Like, we have heroes or characters called Buffalo Soldiers who are based after the actual Buffalo Soldiers from the cavalry times. And you can look at them and say, were they horrible people because they hunted down natives? Yeah, they were. But when you look at things from their perspective, that they were slaves taken from their country and utilized in this country and given the opportunity to have a job and have a little bit of equality, very little. But for them, that was everything, to serve this country and to be able to feed their families and everything. And they pitted these two, Africans and Native Americans against one another because the regular forces couldn't handle it. They were primarily used against the Apache. And the Apache, Geronimo, he was running circles around the regular cavalry. And that's why they brought the Buffalo Soldiers in, because they were stronger, faster than the regular white cavalry. So it was that situation that was the enemy that made these two people combat each other. And so I like writing stories like that, where you're like, holy crap, who do I cheer for here?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So the different tiers, we got, the first tier, pledge $5 to get the PDF version. You get it digitally. I'm not a huge fan of this, but for other people, if you guys, don't like the physical media, I'm a sucker for physical media. I love to have the Blu-rays, DVDs, the comics, everything. I love to have it. I love to look at it. It's beautiful. If this is all you guys could back, at least do that. But I please urge you to back physical. Please, guys, try to get the physical media in your hands. So for pledge or the second tier, but pledge A, it's $10. You get the first cover A, issue number 1. Pledge 2 or pledge B, right? Yeah, pledge B. I don't know if I'm saying this properly, but third tier, pledge B, would be everything with B, and I mean everything with A and B. So you get the two covers, correct? Two covers for $18. C, you get A, you get B, and then you get the C. So there'd be the three covers for 25, correct? Okay, making sure. D, that would be basically like the all in. You get the A, you get the B, you get the C, you get the D. That's the only way to get the Jesse Hernandez Urban Aztec Plus. What? You're gonna throw in a sketch cover for good measure, man? That is awesome. You guys definitely don't have to do that, but you guys are sweetening the pot. So I mean, you're basically getting 5 covers for $45. That's $9 a piece. That's awesome. Definitely is awesome. Then there's the $65 one. It's a signed promo image, so you get the poster, and then you get everything else that was previously included and mentioned, and it's signed by John Proudstar himself. It's 11 by 17 poster, correct? Yeah. Just skip down a little bit. Then you got F, the 75, so you get everything previously mentioned, plus an 8.5 by 11 sticker sheet, which I gotta say, I love things like this, like the little pack-in things of like stickers and things like that. It's definitely something that makes me want to spend a little bit extra to get that. I'm a sucker for stickers and little tchotchkes and things like that. I love that stuff. The 95, you get all that plus the cards, the trading cards. That's awesome. That is truly awesome. You got the add-ons of the sketch cover, the comic, the sticker sheet, and the trading cards separately. If you don't want to do the all-in, the $95 one, you can add it to any of the lower level offerings. Correct?
Yep.
All right. Awesome. So yeah, I think that's the whole entire. We went over everything there.
So after the Kickstarter is done, like if the Kickstarter gets funded and you guys get it funded, so what's the plan afterwards? Are you guys gonna have distribution of more like through comic book shops or through you guys' shops, or how are you guys gonna do that?
Yeah, that's the plan. We'd like to get this first campaign out, under our belt, see how we go. The goal with any Kickstarter is obviously to raise more than the initial goal.
Yes.
And we're hoping that, we can raise enough that can cover some production for a couple issues, because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, John, you have about 8 issues in your pocket right now.
Yeah.
That are written stories, kind of full story arcs. So there's a lot to come. And it's kind of a challenge, as a publisher, because you want people to understand the value of this particular book, the number one, in the origins of everything. And then also knowing that there's so much more stories coming behind it, but also you don't want to you try not to kind of throw it all, give them too much too soon, because then there's like, well, wait, it was already there. Why did it not continue printing back in 96 and all this stuff? And the reality is, it costs a lot to, it costs a little bit to produce a good book. You can produce a book, but to produce a good quality book, with good art, with good coloring, with good quality, printing and production, it takes a bit, and we don't have, we have a little bit of resources, which are pretty much all gone, but we don't have those kind of resources on a daily basis. Yeah. And so, which is why we're here on Kickstarter, because we need that support. There are other groups out there that have a base that have raised millions, but they also have a particular point of view about life or a particular agenda, and they've never produced a comic book in their entire life. But yet they say, we're going to do this, and people just back up the truck. We say we're going to do this, and what we get is the same thing as if somebody does pass away. We get, oh, yeah, a lot of thoughts and prayers with you. That doesn't produce a ton of stuff.
Of course.
That's not the real world that we live in. So, because we're it's not like we're trying to make a living. We're just trying to get this story out. We're trying to get, it produced. I get a lot of, I get to talk to a lot of great people in the world, and, especially in Hollywood, because of where I'm located. And if you just look at the entertainment industry, period, that has to do with pop culture. One of the big things is underrepresentation of minorities that is in, entertainment today. Well, a big reason of that is because resources, just straight up, we need production money, straight up, we need support in that way. You can come, and say you support, but if you aren't in action about it, then you've just come and made yourself feel better about it. You can make a lot of other people feel about it if you're actually in action about it, because then it actually gets produced. Then there's more behind it. But we appreciate the love and the positive words and everybody that we've met along up till now, and really for the past 20 years, and now it's time to, okay, I'm tired of talking about underrepresentation. I'm tired of not having enough to, produce, but we don't, whether it be the color of our skin or, how we came up in the world, or just, we haven't been given those open gates. There's nobody backing up the truck to us. Even some of the, more what we call mainstream, actors and creative people that are in the industry today, they don't have it either. I know this. I've talked to them. I've and so there is that line of, okay, we need support from fan base A to really come out and produce, help us produce this so that we can, bring others along with us. That's the beautiful thing about comics. Tribal Force was one issue back in '96 initially. There's actually an Indigenous con today because of that. There is a Latino expo, comics expo that has, a decent following because of that. There is, so many other things because of what John decided what was important. And we know that this title and what we're up to means so much on so many different levels. And so we're excited, not only because it's good art, it's good story and everything like that. We're also excited that what we can create, as far as avenues for other people, straight up jobs, and straight up avenues for creativity for a lot of people that have not been, don't easily find that inroad to a creative voice in the pop culture industry. So, and there's a lot of great people out there doing amazing work, a lot of great, minorities and people of color. And I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm saying, this is a really ground-based effort. We don't have anybody. This isn't, John is, an actor. He's been an actor for many years and produced a bunch of low-budget movies, and a bunch of good stuff. And finally getting his due, and finally getting his, the roles that he's deserved for years. And, it's still, we're still living in, the times we are, and we just need help from people, more than just saying it.
Yeah, and I mean, Reservation Dogs, it was a great payday for me. It was probably the most I'd ever been paid for any type of project that I had done. And most of that, I want to say about 60% of my Reservation Dogs paycheck went into Tribal Force before I had been talking to Gene. And then when I had talked to Gene, I had, pages that were being done, which I think got him excited because, the ball was already rolling. I was determined I was going to put Tribal Force out on my own if I had to. So when people are like, when they kind of look at me and say, oh, you're on Reservation Dogs, you're on this huge show, Taika Waititi, Sterling Harjo. It's like, yeah, I know them. They don't return my calls, but I know, I know them. It's not like they're jumping on board to help this project out. They got their own things that they're doing. So Gene, Gene utilizing his resources was able to come up with the rest of the funds, to get us to where we're at now. So we've literally exhausted all our resources. We're at the end. And, and that's why we're reaching out to the community now. We feel, we've put our blood, sweat, and tears into it, and we just need this final push. We just need the support from La Raza, the people, and hopefully we get it, because it's going to be amazing. It really is.
Yeah. Christian, do you have anything?
Do you guys plan on going to any kind of conventions? Do you guys plan any conventions coming up that you guys are going to be at?
Yeah, so we'll be at WonderCon in Anaheim on that's March 24th to the 25th, and we'll also be at San Diego. We were there last year just to kind of test the waters with it. So we'll be at San Diego Comic-Con. And trying to get out to a couple of smaller conventions as well. When you don't have the resources, you don't have like the full lineup. So usually, I was told it takes about a year to kind of, oh yeah, by the way, you just missed Emerald City or you just missed Chicago and everything. I'd like to get back to the Midwest. I'd like to get to Chicago. I'd like to get to Texas. I'd like to get to these other places where I have dear friends, and have heard letters and support from people along the way. But again, it's getting to a convention, that's a book sometimes. That do I produce a book or do I go to a con? And so that's one of the things that people I don't think unfortunately understand is it's a lot of resources that draw us from what the creative part that we actually want to produce. So right now I'm focusing, okay, if we can get there, absolutely, because I want to see the fans face to face. I love meeting fans and people that acknowledge and support our work. I want to shake their hand and look you in the eye and say thank you. And one of the things I love actually about being at the cons and everything is 9 out of 10 times I'll go somewhere and usually the kids will come up first because they get it at a different level. Kids, usually under 12, from 12 and below, there's a sparkle that you see a kid light up at that level. Then they just want to know, okay, how do I do what you do? And to me, that's gold, because then you actually are talking, you can make a difference in somebody's lives. And that's what I think it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also, so this this book, is it the same story that y'all told back in '96 or is it different?
Well, it's different. I'm finally getting to tell the story I've wanted to tell and not have to worry about somebody telling me you can't write about that or can't say those things or we can't show those things. So there's elements of the old story in there. Obviously it'll for all the fans that originally started with it, it's not completely different, but there's new elements. This is the tribal force the way I've always wanted it to be. So yeah.
Okay.
So I got technically two things. So one, just from talking to you and going over everything, I'm actually gonna up my pledge a little bit. So there's that. I'm going to do that in a minute. Not just talk about it. I'm going to actually do it. Two, one of the co-hosts, J-Roo, is what he goes by. His grandma is Alaska Native American. He wants to know, is there any possible, like a member or an appearance later on, any like thoughts about adding an Alaska Native American in there later on?
Adi is Kwakiutl. He's from the Kwakiutl tribe, which is in Alaska.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
tell him to show his grandmother when she sees Adi, she'll know because it's authentic. It looks exactly like the artwork from that part of the country.
Okay, I'll definitely let him know. He wasn't able to make it tonight. He's like on call all the time, all the damn time and stuff like that. So he gets called out like at 2:00 in the morning type of stuff. So it's hard for him to make shows a lot of the times. But I'll pass along the message and I'll let him know and tell him.
Yeah, Adi the Thunderbird. He's the bird at the bottom of the page or the poster. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I don't have any other questions. I mean, we've taken up a bit of your time. I want to be mindful here. But thank you very much for coming on. Do you guys have anything else that you guys would like to say before we go ahead and end the stream?
Gene?
Well, first of all, thank you for everybody that's supported us so far. We're just over halfway. We're just over 59% on our campaign so far. We have 3 weeks to go, and we're excited about the potential and the possibility that's to come. Thank you, Gil, and thank you all. Thank your entire staff. I know there's a bunch of people back there, but thank you guys for support. This was a cold call that you made, and we didn't know you before we came on, and you guys seem like hell of a guys. I'd love to hang out, and we have a lot of
absolutely
play around of D&D. I'm all for that, and it's been great, and thank you for just giving us the opportunity to share Tribal Force with you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much, man. This is a huge thing for us, and thanks to everybody that's watching and all the fans of Reservation Dogs. And I'm gonna try and get Paulina Alexis, who plays Willie Jack, my daughter, to do something for us. Give Tribal Force a shout out or something like that. So keep watching the Kickstarter page, and we'll have some surprises for you.
All right.
Matt just said, "Great show, definitely sold me to grab a few copies. Happy to support something positive."
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, bud.
Thank you,
Christian.
Yeah, man, that's another thing that I want to point out, that I'm really happy that you guys came on the show, because you explained the book a lot more and what goes into it, and it's so moving that John's putting these real stories into these characters and dealing with real problems and stuff like that, because like he said, anybody can do a Native American X-Men, and it'll just be superheroes and fighting and stuff like that. But this is actually dealing with real issues and real things that are going on and that has happened and stuff like that. When I looked into the Kickstarter, I started seeing the vision that you guys were doing and how you guys were incorporating everything from the past and stuff like that. And so it's beautiful, and I love it, and I'm definitely backing up this Kickstarter.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Definitely. And so everybody, a couple things. Head over to Instagram, go to machine_comix with the X. Make sure to give them a follow. In there, click on the bio. You'll see the link for the Kickstarter. Click on that. Make sure to grab yourself a couple copies, not just one, couple copies. You're going to want this. Trust me.
Yeah.
So make sure to go over the Kickstarter /projects /artist Gene /tribal-force. If you want to type out the HTTPS type of stuff. But if not, just head over to that Instagram, click the link in the bio. It'll take you right there, back to project. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Thank you for asking questions. Again, I'm your host, Gil, Black Hole Comics, all social media and YouTube. Till next time, make sure to stay geeked up and geek out. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Good.
So I ended the stream.